Hello Internet, welcome to Who Cares, where we're going to discuss and debate the Doctor on his adventures through space and time.
So get ready in this episode for the best buddy cop drama since Turner and Hooch.
See that couple over there?
Shut up!
You're the puppy.
Hello everyone, I'm Hugo.
And I'm Jake.
And as we said, this is Who Cares, and today we're looking at The Witch's Familiar, the finale to the two-part opener of Series 9.
Already loving these two-part structured episodes. I think a cliffhanger plus a resolution is a good way to keep me wanting to watch, but also it just allows for more depth.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the two-part structure allowed for a lot of like we talked about in the first one, the indulgences, the stuff with the Doctor, with the guitar, and in this episode, definitely some good character bits, but we will get to that as we go.
And also, I think it helps because we're not with Matt Smith anymore, which was more frenetic.
Sure.
And Capaldi is definitely a slower Doctor. He's got more calculation in him.
Yeah.
And he's not all handsy.
Mm-hmm. So this episode basically breaks down into two different storylines, so that's how we're going to talk about it. There's the Missy Clara subplot.
They're alive.
And there's the Dr. Davro stuff. But
Yeah.
first I wanted to talk about the Clara Missy, because that was definitely tertiary, but it is important.
It starts out with them, and obviously they're alive, and that's kind of the big deal. And she tells a really cool Doctor story that maybe is made up, but not quite made up, sort of thing, where it's kind of like a legend, kind of like how other people talk about the Doctor when they're not around.
What I liked about the story was it was in black and white, and she said it doesn't matter what face it was, and briefly we see a fourth Doctor and a first Doctor look alike.
Yeah.
So I like the implication that this is something that may have happened to one of the classic Doctors. We don't know. It's just a story, but they put Capaldi in there, because really the face doesn't matter. I like that concept, and I actually wouldn't mind if they did more things like this throughout the season.
Right. And I just really like allowing him to be the legend that he is to everyone else besides us, because we're always there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And although Missy obviously doesn't put him on a pedestal, she still has the stories because she's not always around. I don't know. It's interesting.
So the fan theories, the very simple fan theories, even going back to the end of Series 8 were right. Missy used her wrist thing to teleport away instead of being shot.
I think we all thought that. And she probably did that with the Cybermen as well.
They even showed the clip, so it had to be that.
Yeah.
Honestly, I wish it was something a little more clever, or I wish they hadn't said. You know what I mean? But I liked how they addressed it in part 1, where they just said, yeah, I'm alive, whatever. That's fine,
right.
That's all I need. But they gave us an explanation that's kind of simple, and it's like, all right, fine.
But at least it was for a framework of how will the Doctor react now that he thinks he's going to die? Because the whole point of it was he always finds a way, because he always assumes he's going to win.
Yeah.
And then they kind of set forth like their air quotes mission, because they think the Doctor doesn't think he's going to win anymore, which is important because that's why he made the will and stuff. And so kind of they explained that the Doctor's superpower, for lack of a better term, is his unbridled hubris.
Sure.
You know?
So then they go off on their adventure, and we get a lot of them talking. Missy, again, so far,
fantastic.
Michelle Gomez has not done one performance in this that I've thought, that was shit. I get how some people could be turned off because it's so quirky, random.
I think it works because she's that in real life.
I know. If you've ever seen Michelle Gomez talk in
pretty weird.
She's a weird lady, so I could see her talking like this anyway, so it's fine. We get some weird bits of dialogue. Again, Moffat likes to allude to things, and I wanted to talk about this. I'll talk about it a little more in the Dr. Davros part. Moffat loves his little fan theories. For instance, in this part, he has Missy say just a throwaway line like, oh, the Doctor gave me this brooch when my daughter, and then she gets cut off. Yeah. He loves to put in little bits of canon that he wants to establish.
But, aside from I understand how you think it's extremely intentional, obviously, and it's very Moffat-y, I still think that's how people talk. So, it's not always like, I have to deliver my dialogue and it has to be about what we're doing right now. You can branch off in your own head while you're talking. So, at least, and she's scatterbrained enough for me to be like, all right.
But it's clearly...
I know it is, but that's fine. It can be oh, so the Master had a family. That's interesting, and we'll never talk about it again, probably.
Probably
but
not.
It's interesting to get little bits.
I think he likes to leave breadcrumbs, and I'll talk about this a little bit later too, but he has been a fan for so long. I mean, he was writing on Doctor Who message before Doctor Who message boards were like a big thing. Yeah. This was pre-2005 series. This was a bunch of dorks in their basements on their Windows 95 computers, if that, talking about like, oh, should McGann come back if they bring the series back? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
These are the conversations they were having.
That's interesting.
And he's been writing stuff since then. And I think because he's such a huge fan, a lot of the things he writes come off as fan fiction-y, which is easy to do in a show like Doctor Who, because there's so much canon and it's been around for so long, there's no true voice. So unless you just get amazing writing, pretty much everything comes off as fan fiction. And I think Moffat can slide into that a little bit.
To his credit, I think anyone that is a fan, if given the chance to be showrunner, would also slip into that.
I think so too, but this is the problem with there being a showrunner and not having a little bit more checks and balances. Someone needs to rein him in a little bit, because I think he does a really good job, but then sometimes he'll take a step a little bit too far, and someone needs to say, okay, that's a few too many ideas that you're trying to work on at once. Let's roll this back, maybe take some of your concepts, instead of like,
I can't think of any specific one, but I know exactly what you're saying.
In this episode, we have the introduction of Scarro's back. We have Clara going into a Dalek, just like that Echo of her did. Yep. We have Missy Clara doing a buddy cop thing. We have a Davros episode in which the Doctor and Davros are having a thing. We not only have the philosophical conversations that they normally have, but we also have a little bit where Davros becomes sympathetic. Then we have the introduction of this Dalek sewer idea. The Daleks, they don't ever die, apparently, so they have to keep doing this thing. Then we have the idea of the super Time Lord Daleks that may or may not exist and you can do, and it's like a super thing. And then we also have a prophecy from Gallifrey that is apparently referencing that. There's eight episodes worth of potential plots here that Moffat has decided to push into one. There's even more than that. I could keep going, but what I'm saying is he likes his ideas, and he has some good ideas. Any of these ideas on their own could make their own very interesting, probably 2-part episodes.
And you know what, though? I think that's okay as long as they were brief. It was all brief, and I don't think you need to have all the information all the time, because the idea was most of that stuff comes from Missy being Clara's tour guide, basically, on Scarro, and Scarro's back, and so there's a lot of mythos that we haven't ever touched on because we haven't been there.
It just feels like when Moffat writes a really big story, like in Listen, it was really good, because that was one concept carried out throughout. I think Moffat's downfall is that he comes up with too many ideas and tries to cram them all in instead of selectively taking out the less good ideas. They might still be good, but if you had taken out some of the ideas and just focused on some of the other ones a little more, it could have been like amazing. And this is a good 2-parter. Don't get me wrong. I really like this 2-parter. This was better than most of the episodes last season.
But at least the sewer Daleks and the prophecy thing and the super Time Lordy Daleks, those all had very heavy impact on the plot itself
but they're barely there. And before we talk about the Dalek stuff, just briefly the rest with the Missy Clara stuff, I thought it was all done very well. Clara kind of came off as dumb sometimes, though.
It was interesting to me. Obviously, we have they're revisiting, and now it's a motif that she has been in Daleks twice now.
3 times.
Is it 3? Well, I guess if you're counting into the Dalek, that's bullshit. But she's in control of a Dalek this time, and last time she was a Dalek.
Yeah.
I did find that it was very interesting that they kind of explained the inner workings of a Dalek's mind and kind of how emotion is what shoots the gun, and that's why they're always screaming exterminate, because it's saying exterminate on the outside, but on the inside they could be saying anything.
This is actually
super interesting.
A bit of canon that Moffat has now added that I actually really, really like.
It's awesome.
I like the idea that in some of these Daleks, some of them might not be as evil, but they couldn't even tell you if they were trying. Like, for the most part, they couldn't tell you if they were trying to not kill you, basically. And I like that idea.
I like it, too, because most Dalek episodes give you nothing. Like, most are just like, they're evil, and sometimes
it also,
like, Into the Dalek was, are they going to be good? No, they're not going to be good. But this one was like, well, maybe some of them are like 50% bad and 50% good, and maybe he failed a little bit, but the tanks themselves are making them do things.
See, I would argue that this could help fill in some plot holes as to why don't Daleks just kill everything? Why do they wait and let the Doctor talk? Because maybe some of them don't even really want to... I mean, I assume all of them on some level, they're genetically engineered to be angry and stuff, but maybe not as much as we're led to believe.
Because, not all Nazis wanted to kill innocent people, but they had to in some instances, or were forced to. And it's kind of... It's just really interesting to to get this sort of, maybe there's some neutrality involved with this thing we thought was purely evil. And it even goes further when they go into the Davros stuff. He says, like, they kind of, there's like a feedback loop of kind of Davros feeds into that. And so it's interesting that it's not black anymore. It's starting to gray a little bit. That's really cool.
Yeah, but that's pretty much until we'll talk about the ending at the end. But that's pretty much all about the Missy.
They have some cool
Clara
adventures.
Stuff.
Totally worth.
Pretty much
totally
just,
worth the watch. If I just got that, that'd be a great episode.
Yeah.
But.
So now the Dr. Davros stuff. This was all really good. The performance by the guy who plays Davros was actually awesome in this episode. I was surprised.
I was really surprised too, because usually they put prosthetics on the people in Doctor Who. They don't really act well.
No, there's not a lot of emoting.
Yeah.
But in this, especially when usually Davros is very shouty, but we get a solid 10-15 minutes in this episode where he's playing sympathetic.
They have a conversation, and it's really awesome. And part of me after they kind of end that segment was like, I really wish they would have stayed with it. And the other part of me is like, but you can't, because that undermines everything that's ever happened.
That's the problem with the show that's been going for over 50 years.
Yeah.
You can only scooch the status quo so much at once, otherwise people go, that's totally against the character. You know what I mean?
Right. So what happens is Davros basically is like, I've always respected you, talking to the Doctor. I just tried to save my people. And there's probably some grains of truth in those words, but basically what he's trying to do is trick the Doctor into using his regenerative powers to restore some Davros life force into him, because he's like, I want to see the sun one last time with my own eyes. Turns out Davros has eyes. Always thought he had no eyeballs. And maybe this is a recent change.
This is a retcon. It's got to be, because I was watching Genesis of the Daleks the other day. You were there. Mm-hmm. He has no eyes. He does not have eyes. The implication of the makeup is he doesn't have eyes, and that's why he has the eye stalk that he's put on himself like a Dalek.
Right, because he's so old.
He was old, and he was damaged in the war.
But it didn't bother me as much as I thought it might.
It did.
When he mentioned it, I was like, ugh. But then when he did it, it was like, okay, it kind of makes sense. His eyes are really old and icky, and he's just trying to like maintain himself and not use as much of his body as he can.
I think it worked because he used his eyes for the sympathetic performance.
I agree.
There was a reason for it. It wasn't just, look, Davros has eyes. It was, no, we're going to use the eyes to show you the humanity left in him.
It wasn't like a shock value thing.
No.
Because usually that sort of reveal is like, oh, he has eyes. Thanks, Moffat. But this was actually a really good use of that tool.
Sure.
And man, that conversation was so great. And again, I really think like there's like 10% of that's totally honest.
The mirroring of Davros and the Doctor from last season. He even says, am I a good man? Which is exactly what last season's arc was basically about, was him deciding, am I a good person?
And I really think there's a shred left in Davros, just due to that performance at all. The fact that he could bring himself to tears, even if he's acting, that he did it, and he was still that little boy at one point.
Sure.
So he's gotta be. He's not a Dalek. He created them.
You could argue, is Davros creating the Daleks at least by intention, not by design, because the Daleks have killed tons of people. The reason he invented the Daleks in the first place was because he wanted his species to survive.
Right, and that's like a noble cause, but at the same time, it's like...
And think about what the Doctor's done, though, too.
Exactly.
He thought at one point he had killed everyone on his planet.
And then the Doctor mentions that he found Gallifrey,
yeah.
And Davros has a really, it seems, genuine... because it's not really... It doesn't tie into his plot at all.
No.
It doesn't tie into his plan to trick the Doctor. He has a moment of, wow, I'm really, really genuinely happy for you because I wish I could have that and I can't.
Yeah.
And it was like, whoa, this is... And the Doctor, understandably, is like, oh, what? This was fucked up, or...
Both on the guy who played Davros and Peter Capaldi. That was an amazing scene acting-wise in Doctor Who. Doctor Who, it gets pretty cheesy and silly, but when a scene is written well, they get some fucking amazing performances. Seriously, I mean... Then they tell a joke. Davros basically makes a joke because the Doctor's like, you really are dying, aren't you? And Davros says, we know one thing. You're a really bad doctor. And they, like, share a genuine laugh.
I know. And so, man, and even though Davros is looking out for himself and betraying the Doctor in this way and tricking him, still...
I know. It was really excellent.
It still strikes me as threads of truth throughout that entire conversation, which is just fantastic writing. I'm usually... not as impressed with Moffat's trying to be deepness.
Yeah.
But this worked really well. Yeah. This was borderline flawless.
I know. The Doctor gets a spin in Davros' wheelchair.
That was cool.
That was kind of a fun scene. The one thing I didn't really like about that, I liked it and both hated it, because it was such a meta... I'm Moffat, fuck you line. And they come back from like a scene break where they were with Missy. And all of a sudden he has a tea cup and he goes, the real question you should be asking is, where did I get the tea? I'm the doctor. You're gonna just have to live with it, basically.
Yeah.
And I thought,
that was corny.
That's basically Moffat saying, fuck you, I will write plot holes and you will live with it. And part of me, I enjoy that kind of joke. It's like, yeah, it is just a show. If there's any show that you have to sit back and say, this is just a show, I need to enjoy it, it's Doctor Who.
Right.
But sometimes there's even a little too much where you can go, do you get it? The Doctor's plot armor is so fucking thick, it's impenetrable. He can do anything.
I can't take that seriously because you like The Flash. So
no, I recognize The Flash is not a good show though.
Yeah, but no, I get it. It was kind of like a but then you're like, fuck it. He has a fez sometimes. It works. It's whatever.
So near the end of the episode, we have the introduction of the idea that the Doctor may have left Gallifrey because of some sort of prophecy that essentially says a Time Lord is going to make way for some terrible warrior, a combination of Time Lord and maybe Dalek. Davros seems to interpret it as Daleks, but it seems like it's vague, so it could be something different.
And the word prophecy, to me, because they can time travel, reads more like, we think this is probably going to happen because we saw it happen, but timelines can change.
Sure.
So I don't know what he's running. They also allude to maybe he was in more trouble than he ever let on.
Yeah. I think that's going to be the series arc, because he did take that confession dial with him, and they showed it a little bit at the end, so I think by the end of the season, it'll probably be a Name of the Doctor type thing where they allude as if they're going to answer the question at the end of the season, but they won't.
I don't ever want to find out the name of the Doctor, the actual name, ever. And I don't think you could write anything that would be satisfying enough anyway.
I don't want to know the name, and I don't want to know why he left Gallifrey.
I really don't. Unless it's, you'd have to write the shit out of that and make it, like, heavy as fuck. Like,
and if it's genuinely just like, oh, he was afraid he was going to make a half Dalek, half Time Lord, I'd be like, that's weak as fuck.
Yeah, but if it was like, they were gonna kill my family, I had, like, if it's something really heavy that makes you feel bad for the Doctor and also a little makes sense why he's aloof sometimes,
sure,
I think that could work. But if you don't write that perfect, I don't want it.
Yeah, I don't know. So he gets tricked into giving his regenerations, and they start to turn into, I guess, half Dalek, half Time Lords. Now, here's my problem with introducing this concept here. That could have been a whole 2-part episode unto itself.
It may be in the future.
Near the beginning. I hope so, because what powers does a half Dalek, half Time Lord have that a Dalek has? Mm-hmm. I have no idea, because they don't do anything. They just die immediately after that, because apparently the Doctor was in on this the whole time and wanted it to happen. Which, let me tell you about that plot device, which has happened several times in Doctor Who, where by the end you find out the Doctor was playing everyone the whole time. This has happened in the 7th Doctor's also. I think that was also with Davros, when he had the Hand of Omega. He tricked him, and by the end of the episode, it was basically, we were fine the whole time, the Doctor had it under control.
Yeah.
That makes the story not about a hero dealing with a problem and succeeding. It's a hero having things all under control, but only from a third-person audience perspective do we think there's even a problem. So it makes the whole episode less dramatic on a rewatch, because you know nothing's at stake. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I suppose it also has a little bit of sociopath running through it, because anytime it's like that, and again, sometimes it can be very cool, because sometimes it's like a time travel related, I had this, but in retrospect, I had to change things sort of way. Part of me thinks that he was trying to give Davros a shot.
Maybe.
Because it was kind of like, I don't want to do this, but then, because he got told, like, just touch the things and you can kill all the Daleks, and he put his hand up there, which was a little suspicious to me watching it, and so I assume Moffat's thinking, the Doctor would be like, onto him immediately.
Right.
Because, that dude can sense if gravity is weird. So, I don't know. I agree with you.
Yeah.
But I'm also like, I could see how he could be like, I don't want to kill all of them, but if he forces my hand, I'm going to have to fucking do it again. Because he does that a lot. He always is like, I'm not going to take the aggressive approach, but I will take the passive-aggressive approach.
Sure. So that happens. Davros is defeated via poop, basically. It's Dalek. It's dead Daleks. I like the idea that the Daleks don't die. They just keep decomposing infinitely, essentially.
Which kind of adds to their hate and misery all the time.
Yeah.
Because they know what that's going to be.
Probably. So that was kind of a neat idea, but again, very briefly touched upon. I like that Missy and Davros meet for the first time. Surprisingly, in 50 years, the Master and Davros have never once met.
And I like that she's like, oh, it's great to meet you.
And then pokes him in the eye.
Yeah.
All right. So then we get to what could have been the best part in anything ever, which was...
It's a little too dark for the show, but
I
I totally agree with you.
I wish this was mature enough where it's like a Torchwood where you do sort of adult things, but I understand why they couldn't. But this would have been an amazing way to write out Clara, because she is leaving. She comes in, she's still in the Dalek, and Missy's like, this is the Dalek that killed Clara, even though Clara's in there.
And obviously the Doctor still thinks Clara's been dead the whole time.
Yeah, and because of the filter, she can't say I'm Clara, it just keeps saying I'm a Dalek, I'm a Dalek. And Missy almost convinces the Doctor to destroy it, which would have... Can you imagine
that would have been so amazing.
If the Doctor killed one of his own companions because he was mad thinking that this thing had killed the companion?
Because they fucked up the Christmas special and she reneged at the last second and wanted to be back, and because that was going to be a perfect ending. She got old. It was kind of a mirror of what happened to Matt Smith sort of thing. They each had to do that to each other.
Yeah.
And so that got wiped out, which was probably the best way to write her out. This turned into a better way to write her out because it was so effed up. Like, it was just messed up from... Can you imagine what would have happened after that point in the season and moving forward forever?
It would have been crazy.
Yeah.
The Doctor would have just gone absolutely nuts.
That would have been
and I understand it's like a family show, but I don't know. There may have been a tasteful way to get that across without actually seeing him shoot her, maybe.
And I don't even hate Clara enough to want that for her character.
No.
But I do love the balls if they were to pull that off.
Yeah.
Like, I respect that.
The Doctor, it's been a while since he's suffered a loss. Even Amy and Rory, they just went back in time. They're still alive.
That was more of an emotional thing. Like, his best friends got ripped out of his life.
Yeah.
Which was good. I think they did that well, and also he felt bad about the Clara thing. But yeah, he hasn't lost anyone seriously since Rose.
Probably.
And nobody likes Rose.
Even Donna, I mean, she's still alive.
Donna was a
somewhere.
little sad.
Yeah.
Although her escape is she just has to think open. And you have a huge problem with that. I both have a problem with that and don't, because she is dumb as fuck in this episode.
Okay, so the Doctor literally says all you have to do is think the word open and it'll open. He didn't say you have to think about it opening. He doesn't say you have to will it open. He says you have to think the word open, which means in all the time she's been...
Trapped.
Clara's been spending the last 2 hours just wandering around Skaro, not knowing where she is, being dumb. And she didn't once think, man, I wish this Dalek would open, or any permutation of the word open in any sentence.
Unless, I mean, you could make a case, and I just think it was just they didn't know how to get her out of it after they put her in it when they were writing it. And we're like, open? I don't know. But, the only argument I could make for that and being like, no, it's fine, is maybe she was just very freaked out and flabbergasted and kind of... Like, her mind is always going really fast when she's in the Dalek every time you see her, so maybe she just didn't take a goddamn second to breathe and think open.
I don't know.
But she's supposed to be super clever and shit now, because in the last episode, she had that shit on lock.
She was doing computer shit, and she was being really smart. I don't know. It was just kind of inconsistent writing. Then it ends with the Doctor going back to save young Davros.
Missy, by the way, gets trapped on Skaro.
Yeah, and that's going to come up again.
I assume she's fine. She says, I'm going to do something really clever, and then...
Yeah, so she might even come back this season. It wouldn't shock me
I assume she'll be back this season.
Maybe in the finale.
At least twice.
But yeah, the Doctor does that, closes the time loop, saves Davros to teach him a little bit about mercy. Surprisingly, had very little effect on him as a person, I guess. You'd think that'd affect him more, but sure, he got injured in the war or whatever. Before that, though, there is kind of a cool effect. It turns out the TARDIS, when it got blown up, it still exists. It just kind of dispersed across the room, basically. Like, it exploded and stayed exploded. The effect of it coming back together was really, really cool.
Yeah. It seems like it's a self-defense thing to try to trick the enemy into thinking they have won.
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting, because the TARDIS... Anytime they add a power to the TARDIS, I'm just like, all right, whatever.
Yeah.
Because it makes sense, because it's just the thing that can do all the stuff.
The one thing that concerns me, the sonic sunglasses.
I don't think that's going to stick around, because he has the boy has the screwdriver at the end, and I think he's going to give it back.
Maybe.
I think it'll be fun.
I really, 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 really hope Moffat did not just decide, I'm sick of the sonic screwdriver, let's give him sonic sunglasses. That would be incredibly stupid.
I feel like we've seen it in the trailers for other episodes already.
We have, which is what worries me. I've seen him filming with those on too. I don't mind if he's just wearing them, but if instead of a sonic screwdriver they use sonic sunglasses as much as they were using the screwdriver, it's gonna look stupid.
I don't think they will. I think that's just a joke, and that kind of adds to, that's why he has an affinity for the stupid Ray-Bans.
Sure, I mean that's fine, but if that keeps coming back like it's a sonic screwdriver, I'm gonna be
I just think it's because he was goofy. He's been goofy for a little bit.
We'll see.
I really can't imagine that they're gonna take something that's cool and iconic, especially as a fan of the show as much as Moffat is, and replace it with fucking sunglasses. I cannot imagine he'd do that.
They might. And all that's left, I guess, now is the next time. And the next time is...
Didn't really give us much.
No,
Abe Lincoln Ghost.
Base Under Siege, and it's Ghosts. Again, which we've gotten before, but I like Base Under Siege, and I'm always interested in the...
These ones look interesting, at least.
Yeah, they look more like actual ghosts.
They can walk through walls, and then they're holding, like, weapons, and then those don't go through the walls, which is great.
Sure.
Because ghosts are logically weird.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see what the explanation for the ghosts are. The Doctor Who explanations for supernatural things are always pretty fun.
Last time, wasn't it a medic?
Last time it was a medical thing from a ship in another dimension.
Yeah.
But we'll see next week, and I think that's it, right?
Yes.
So, you can always check us out on Twitter at The Real Unpop.
You can always subscribe, and you can check out more of our Who Cares series. You can also check out last season if you didn't get to that, and recap so that you know all the things that are happening, because there are a lot of things.
We also have a Patreon. That's pretty cool. If you wanted to help support the show, that'd be the bee's knees.
That'd be cool tits. Funky fresh.
So tell us what you thought about the episode in the comments. We'll try and be there, maybe have a discussion if you disagree with us.
Any
about
fan
anything.
Theories?
Sure. I don't know what's going to happen this season other than Confession Dial is going to come back into play, and they're going to talk about where his face came from, probably. That's my guess. So, until next time, I'm Hugo.
And I'm Jake.
And this has been Unpopular Culture.
With the Witches Familiar.